Okay, so hello everybody and welcome to this supporting stressless living segment. For anybody who doesn't know me, my name's Felicia Jones. I'm a nutritionist and a stress management trainer, and today I'm here with Jenna, and we're going to go into Jenna's story in a little bit. It's really interesting and I know that so many people will get a lot out of it. But for anybody who hasn't tuned in before and you're wondering what's this all about, it's basically myself and my guests sharing our experience, our health journey experience. And that's going back to situations where we were stressed and that stress may have got out of control, and looking at what we did to really support ourselves to manage to get back on the road to recovery. But not only what we did then, what we're actually doing now to stay well, because as you all know, health isn't a short-term thing, it's something that we do for the rest of our lives. So that's in a nutshell what these different segments are about. And today we've got Jenna and Jenna's story. And the reason that I love it is because, one, I think it's really relatable, especially for young people and people who had stress or stress-related illnesses kind of in that growing up phase, in the teenage, the younger adulthood phase. But the other thing that I love is that Jenna just tried so many different things and never gave up, just kept on, trying and trying and trying until she found what was right for her. So I'm not going to go into it too much because it's not my story, it's Jenna's story. So hello, Jenna.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being on. I really, really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And so, as I intimated, this was, or the reason that I really liked it was going back to that young adult stage, and that's where we talked about your story starting before. So can you just share a little bit about that? What was actually happening to you when you started to feel unwell?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the main issues started when I was doing my A levels. So I was a very determined young person from about 12. I had it in my heart and my mind that I was going to study medicine.
Uh-huh.
So I was already sort of researching which medical schools and things I wanted to go to. I was working very hard. And then it came to my A levels. I was doing 5 subjects. I was doing extracurricular. I was trying to have a life and I had a boyfriend and I was a sister. And I think that's where everything sort of started to crumble a little bit. I was really pushing myself and I was burning out. And I don't think it was really that obvious to me, or if it was, it wasn't something that I was willing to acknowledge.
Uh-huh.
And in the end, I had glandular fever. Which once again I sort of like tried to push through and ignore. I think I took a little bit of time out from college, but not a lot. And then I came back and I was sort of going again and trying to keep up. But it got to the point where I just wasn't getting better, and it was difficult for me to keep going anymore. I couldn't avoid it. It was just right in my face. And I think from there, I went through the process of a diagnosis for ME. I'm not sure what the protocol is at the moment, but back then it was sort of a process of elimination. So blood tests, I think, mainly for other things. And then, it's like, well, if you don't have any of these things on the list, then this is ME.
Right.
And I was referred to see a specialist at Southend Hospital. This is quite a long time ago, so I have to really search my memory bank for
Yeah.
this. So from there, I think, what happened? I think they referred me to a team that was based in Colchester for various sort of treatments like cognitive behavioural therapy. I saw an occupational therapist and a physio who did graded exercise with me. But at the same time that all of this was going on, my mental health really started to decline. I was still pushing.
Do you think that was related to it?
Oh, completely.
Right.
100%, because I was so determined as a person. I wanted medicine so badly. And I think that determination comes from a trauma in my childhood, which is a different subject, but it was there all the same. And I just, yeah, I kept going. I just kept going, and I was working from home. I was studying from my bed on the days that I could manage. But at the same time, it was sort of like deteriorating. My health was deteriorating quite quickly, to the point where I couldn't get out of bed. I had to have help. I couldn't get up and down the stairs. I couldn't brush my hair. I couldn't eat. I couldn't walk, so I couldn't really go out anywhere. Talking on the phone was impossible because it was just so tiring. And it sounds kind of strange to think, oh, how can it be tiring to talk on the phone? But it really is.
Thing that people might not actually understand is when we're saying tiring, we think of, oh, I'm tired, I'll go to bed.
Mhm.
And I might go to bed a few hours early and I wake up in the morning and I feel all right.
Oh yeah, it's completely different. This kind of tiredness is not like anything you can possibly put words to. The only thing I can kind of liken it to would be like severe flu. So
Right.
when you feel, I always felt like I had this feeling in my core, like it was being drained from me, like something was sucking it out of me. It's a very physical feeling.
Yeah.
It's not just, oh, I feel a bit tired, I need to go to sleep, because you can't sleep. That's another problem. You don't sleep very well, so you can never get that refreshment from a decent night's sleep. So yeah, I think things were going wrong basically. And I think because I just felt trapped. That was how I felt. I felt so trapped in my body.
Yeah.
I felt like I had nothing left.
Yeah.
Doctors were saying, well, you're probably unlikely to get better. This is one of the problems. You're unlikely to get better. You may have some recovery, but you'll probably have this for the rest of your life. And in my mind,
when you're that
yeah,
age.
exactly. I saw all my friends going off to university, which is what I wanted to do. So they were gone. I barely saw them either when I was really suffering, because I'd been taken out of the loop.
Yeah.
So it was almost like out of sight, out of mind. And I felt very alone because they didn't really come to see me. And like I said, I couldn't really go and do things. And even on days that were good, if I did go out and do things, then I would pay for it.
In the sense of that you would feel more ill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think because all of this was going on with my external reality, and I felt like everything I wanted and worked so hard for was slipping away, my mental health really declined.
Yeah.
And I became very suicidal and depressed. And I lost a lot of weight. I think I lost about 2.5 stone, because I naturally lost my appetite. That kind of comes as the package.
Yeah.
And through that, see, it's kind of a toxic cycle. So you become your illness. That's how people start to identify with you. So when I would see people, they would say, oh, how are you feeling today?
Uh-huh.
And that was it, because that was all I had.
Right.
So when I started to lose weight, it became more of, oh, you look good, you've lost some weight. So it was like an extra thing that I could identify with. And I think I took that on board, I internalized that, and that became something else that was toxic in my life. I developed anorexia and bulimia, and I purposefully didn't eat, or didn't eat very much.
Yeah.
So my hair was falling out, and I just was in a big mess, really.
Yeah.
And I started self-harming as well. No one knew about it because I could cover it up. So all of these things I was doing to my body, and my mind was just falling apart, and I felt so alone. And then I just felt this overwhelming feeling of, well, this is it, this is it for my life. And then you have those thought cycles going round constantly. Oh, this is it, I'm so tired. All of these negative thought loops.
Yeah.
I don't feel very well. It's always a negative thing that you're reinforcing.
And then, I mean, from what you're saying, it sounds as if there was no out. You
No,
could see an out.
no.
So what was a kind of a glimmer? Was it that there was a tiny little spark and then it grew, or did something happen and you were just like, I need to go one way or the other? Or
Do you know what? I think organically there were times where I did start to feel a bit better. I'm just trying to think. I mean, ended a relationship with my boyfriend that I had, that I was with at college, and then I met somebody else, and I think that probably helped a little bit. But at that time, I think I really, it sounds really funny being 19, 20 years old, but I really wanted a child. And I think a lot of that came from the fact that I felt like I wanted something, something for me, something, because I kind of thought, well, I'm not going to go traveling because I can't. I'm not going to go to university. I'm not going to do all of those things that I'd planned for my life because I just can't.
Yeah.
So my baby can give me all, it can fill that big hole that was there, I think is where that predominantly came from. And actually, when I became pregnant, my symptoms improved, which was miraculous. They weren't perfect, but they were a lot better than they were pre-pregnancy. So I think that was probably a slight turning point, actually, for me.
And did you feel well enough to say, I think I'm well now?
No.
Okay.
No, I didn't feel like I could remove that title from my life at that point. No.
Yeah. So then what went on from there then? So you weren't feeling totally well, and did you get to a stage where you thought, I do actually want to be totally well?
I think I sort of like trundled along for a little while. So I had my daughter. That was a big trauma in itself because she was 11 weeks premature. So I was spending the entire sort of like 3 months in hospital in Cambridge, away from my family and from her dad because he was working. So that was very stressful. And I think when she came home, things, yeah, I think I was managing. I was living with my parents. Eventually my relationship broke down with her dad, and he went back to Southend, where he's from. And I think I tried to build a life for myself. So I was feeling more refreshed, and I would go out. So on the weekends, you know, I was a young person, so I would go out and maybe drink a little bit too much, which I wouldn't do these days, but I was trying to have fun, you know, like everybody else was doing. And I think that was uplifting in a way because it made me feel normal. And I was just exploring, you know, all of the opportunities that I could now sort of take part in that I couldn't previously, but I would still have those days where I wasn't feeling so good. However, it did get to the point where I started university. And I did start originally at UEA in Norwich, but that meant that I was away from my family again. So it didn't work out, which is fine. I learned from that experience, and I actually changed direction a little bit and decided to do something different, which is great. But I still found that university experience quite difficult because I had a young child and I was living on my own. She was spending a lot of time in nursery, and it sort of took me 4 years to finish my degree rather than 3 years, which is fine. I accepted that, but it was very difficult.
Did you feel that you were under what you describe as knowing what stress is now, that you were under stress now, or do you think it was just that it was circumstances, it was difficult?
I think I was just under continuous stress, but a lot of the time I was putting the stress on myself, and I think I can recognize that now, whereas before it was almost like, well, this is a normal thing, you know, people go to university, it's stressful, that's normal. Yes, I've had stresses with my daughter and my, you know, the rest of my family and other things like that, but I just kept going, I suppose.
And did you get to a stage where you crashed again, or
Yes.
oh, you
Yeah,
did?
I did, definitely. I had a couple of occasions during university where I had major relapses, and that was the reason why it took me an extra year to finish, because I had to come out basically and just take some time to recover. And I think the last relapse I had, I can't remember if that was before I finished my degree or if it was just after. I think it might have been after. That was when everything sort of changed, because I felt like I'd built myself up to a point where I could almost function normally. I was having a more of a normal life and fewer bad days, and I thought I just screwed it up.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. So I thought, I can't do this again. I need to do something now.
So it was almost functioning, but not fully functioning.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like now you're really healthy and well, so you can obviously see the difference on that. But what was the next turning point then, when you were just like, okay, there's this gap between how I really want to feel and how I'm feeling?
Okay, well, I happened to meet somebody in 2012, and this was when I was ill. And he's very much into alternative medicines and natural therapies and science and all these different things. And he said to me, well, you do realize you don't have to be ill, don't you? And I said to him, well, the doctors have said to me that I probably won't make a recovery.
Yeah.
And the conversation sort of went that way, and then it was left. And then after this last relapse that I had, I think I came back to that conversation with him, and I questioned him about it. And he sent me some videos and some material to go over. And it went from there, really. That's where the real journey began. I think before that, I'd sort of had like a bit of a breakup as well. So that sort of like propelled it forward a little bit more, because I was like, right, I've had enough. You know, I'm heartbroken. I need something to focus my attention on, and I don't want to be ill anymore. Right, my life needs to change. And I think that's where it went from.
But it's so interesting, that concept that you said, I don't have to be ill anymore.
Mm.
Do you adopt that because you recognize that you'd been associating as an ill person before and there was an alternative? I mean, this is like really, you know, something that's that you work through in your brain, but did you ever have a sense of that?
I think up to that point, I'd always just relied on authority figures. So doctors, if they said such and such, then that's just how it is. And I think that's just how society is programmed, in a sense. You know, rely on these people, they will give you the pills, they will tell you how to move forward, etc. And I think that was the turning point, because when I started to look into it myself, this is the thing, I'm quite a curious person, and I need to understand from a scientific perspective how something works. So my friend sent me stuff on what's it called, quantum physics. I think that's where it began for me. I was looking at how reality is shaped from an energetic perspective. So some people might have heard of Dr. Joe Dispenza. So he's done a lot of work on how we can heal our body through the power of our minds and thoughts. Also with Dr. Bruce Lipton, who works with genetics and how we can influence our genetics. So this kind of information was where I was going. I was doing so much reading and watching videos. It's more videos actually, because that's easier for me when I was tired. And when you understand it, I think it kind of embeds within you, because you start to feel empowered, you start to feel powerful again. And I think I'd spent so much time feeling disempowered.
Yeah.
And that was being reinforced constantly by these external figures who were saying, well, actually, no, you know, this isn't going to go any further. This isn't going to get much better. But then I was started to feel, yeah, powerful again. Like I could take control of my body again. And that was a great feeling.
So what did you practically do?
Okay, so I just became very aware of what I was doing with myself from a minute to minute basis. So I became aware of the thoughts I was having. So, like I said before, I would always reinforce that I was tired. So if I was feeling really drained, I would say in my mind, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I'm so tired. I need to go to bed. It was things like that. And I think because other people outside of me were also saying, oh, how are you feeling today? Do you need me to do this? Do you need me to do that? I think I was aware of what I was eating, whereas before I just kind of ate whatever. I mean, I like sweet things, I'm not going to lie. I do like a cake and some chocolate and things like that. So I was fueling my body with these things that would give me a high and then a crash, because I just thought, well, it's not going to make any difference to me. I'm always going to feel tired. And you don't get this kind of information from doctors. They're not saying, well, let's look at your diet. Let's do this. You know, this will help you. So it was things like that. So what I did was I decided, right, I'm no longer going to give these tired, draining feelings my energy. So if I feel that way, then all I'm going to do is I'm going to acknowledge it, and then it's gone. I'm going to distract myself. I'm going to, in my mind, I feel good. That's where I'm going with it. I had to tell myself, I feel great, and just move forward. Feed myself mentally things that were uplifting. So, you know, things that are funny or empowering, just to kind of make myself feel better. And I also told friends and family not to ask me how I was.
Uh-huh.
stop doing it, because that's reinforcing it as well. You're kind of getting into a dialogue then, which can bring your energetic frequency right down. So that wasn't helpful. So I eliminated that. And then I think as time went on, it became more of, what can I do sort of externally? What am I bringing into my body? Like I said, so food changed for me quite drastically. So I started juicing.
Yeah.
So it did start with fruit, and then that became too sweet for me. So I moved on to vegetables, and I actually quite enjoyed nice beetroot juice. And I made smoothies as well. And then my diet changed from sort of a omnivorous diet to vegetarian. Yeah, and then I think as the days went on, I mean, it didn't happen overnight. This is not an
I was going
overnight
to say
thing.
that, because I mean, even if, as you're describing it now, you can actually feel that it was a process.
Yeah,
And the thing you said about actually challenging your thoughts is so hard in itself, or challenging in itself, because those thoughts naturally come.
yeah, they do.
Counterintuitive to actually say something when your mind's actually saying, yeah, you do feel tired, because you physically feel
Yeah,
like, and
yeah.
you're actually saying, no, I'm not. So,
Mhm.
you know, being able to do that is an amazing thing. That's, you know, as I said, you know, so amazing. But it's also a long term thing. It's not something that you did probably for a couple of weeks.
No, this I didn't have any illusions that this was going to be an overnight thing. I think I was prepared, and because I'd done the research, that's what I would say. Because it was so embedded in me, because I understood it, I knew from like a heart and soul level it was going to work. So I kept going, I kept persevering. And I think as you know, as the weeks went on, I recognized, oh, I'm having more good days now, which is great. So I kept going, and then it would get to a point where months had passed, and I realized actually I've not had a bad day since I can remember. So
Yeah.
it did take months, but it wasn't a year. It was definitely, it might have been 6 months, it might have been a bit less, but it happened gradually. And it was almost like, oh, I didn't even think of that today. And I feel really good, to the point where I started going to the gym. So this became maybe a bit of an obsession.
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to lie. Where I think my energy and my focus became, right, I need to get strong now, because I'd had so many, I think it was about 8 years that I was ill, and I had muscle wastage, and I wasn't very strong and all this kind of stuff. So I started at the gym, and probably did a bit more cardio before I started increasing weights and things. But yeah, I think I probably went from going to like maybe a couple times a week to 6 times a week, which is a lot.
Yeah.
And I was doing weights, and I was gradually increasing them, and I was building up muscle mass to the point where I was getting quite bulky. But I think it was so empowering to me. It's so empowering, because I'd spent so much time feeling like I didn't have any strength,
Yeah.
mentally and physically. And I think this was my way of proving to myself, I can do it. I can be strong. Look how strong I am, basically. Look world, look how strong I am. Because it was visible, you know, you could see it. I had biceps and abs and things. I was like, oh my God, I feel so strong, and it's amazing. So yeah, I think that was the point where everything was great. And I also introduced meditation. So I was working more on the sort of spirit and the mind level, as well as doing the physical stuff as well.
And were you still self-talking any of those negative thoughts away?
They weren't really there. They weren't there anymore. I think it got to a point now where I'd just changed so much. You know, I'd become a different person. And right now, like looking back on who I was a year ago, I'm not that person. So looking back on the person I was 10 years ago, I'm definitely not that person. So
And so after that, where did you get to kind of in your health? Because you said you were going to the gym, it was a little bit more than you probably would have thought was beneficial for you. But where do you actually get to in terms of actually feeling healthy and feeling well after all of that?
what do you mean?
Because after that period of going to the gym, you said
Mhm.
you hadn't had any relapses, you were feeling quite well.
Yeah.
So was that, it continued from then on?
Oh yeah. yeah, this was just new normal now. So I say I still go. I haven't been to the gym, obviously, with lockdown and things. But yeah, that was my new normal. That was every week I would make an effort to go to the gym. Not as much because, you know, life has various things going on and I was working, so it wasn't always easy for me to do that. But that was just the new normal now. I changed my diet completely. So I've been vegan now for, I think, 6 years. And meditation is still something I do almost every day. And now I do yoga. And I think that's actually more beneficial for me physically, because I think I was probably pushing my joints a bit too much, doing the heavy weights and things. And I think it's also more of a connective experience, so the mind and the body, rather than just pushing the body. So yeah, I'd say I'm not overly stressed about going back to the gym. I'm quite happy if I've got yoga.
And so that's the point I really wanted to bring up to today, to where you are today, what you're doing today, and how you're feeling today. And so in terms of actually taking on a lot, because we heard that, you know, when you were younger, you were very driven. How does that compare to now, you taking on different things? And
I still think I take on quite a lot, but I think I manage it better. And I recognize when my body is no longer able to keep going, or my mind, for that instance, is no longer able to keep going. I mean, I have got 2 children now, and I work part-time 2 days a week, and I'm studying, doing a PhD, and that takes 2 days a week. But obviously, having children and sort of juggling all of these different things and trying to have some sort of social life, it does have some toll on how you're feeling. So I do like to go to bed early. But I do recognize if I can't keep going. So I do allow my body the time that it needs just to rest, mentally and physically, actually.
it sounds amazing from where you came from and where you are today. And that it, you know, the thing I loved as well was that you actually sort of brought us into your world, explaining that it wasn't overnight. It was like a long time that this happened. And I think people often feel that I have to get better and push ourselves more than we're able to at that time.
Actually, you just reminded me of something. That's something that's really, really important. So this idea of resistance was a big deal. So I realized when I was going through this process that I had so much resistance in my mind and in my body to my illness. So that was actually the first thing that I came to understand. I needed to just allow. I'm here right now, I'm ill, and my body doesn't feel great. And just letting go of the resistance to it, because I was fighting and fighting and fighting. I don't want to be ill. I don't want to feel like this. I want my life back. That's just resistance. And all you get when you have resistance is more resistance. Yeah. So you're just sort of perpetuating the whole problem. So I let it go. I just let it go and just allowed it. Because once you can accept where you are, then you can start to move forward.
Jenna, I couldn't say it myself. That was absolutely perfect.
It reminded me when you said that, and I thought that's so important, because I think sometimes people don't realize they're in resistance. But once you really think about it, you're like, oh yeah, I'm really pushing, I'm really resisting this, but you need to just let it go.
Well, thank you for that last point, and thank you for this whole interview. I know people will get a ton out of it. So for anybody who's tuning in, if you've got any questions, if you've got any comments, please put them below and I'll try and answer as soon as I can. But I just want to thank you again, Jenna, for being on and being so open and just sharing so much. Thanks, Jen. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.